Welcome to At the Helm with Adventure Man Dan. Let's start the adventure. Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of At the Helm with Adventure Man Dan, the podcast where I talk about all aspects of the adventure lifestyle. I am so very honored for you to be joining me here today on the 3rd of December 2020. Right now I'm recording from my editing station aboard my beautiful 38-foot Beneteau sailboat Adventureborn, currently docked in Fort Pierce, Florida. And I will note this is my second podcast I'm recording in a row, so I'm finally getting my material out there, folks. Yay. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about being crew or taking crew on your sailboat. This is a big topic and is probably going to take a little while, so sit back, relax, or take some notes. Because this one's not meant to be a story. This one's meant to be usable information to help you guys out there. And I really hope it does just that. I really hope it helps people get onto sailboats, stay on sailboats, enjoy their time on sailboats, or to get crew on your boat if you've already got them. So moving on. So what I mean, by the way, is if you're planning on going sailing for a long duration, you're either A, part of the crew on the sailboat, or B, you're the captain of that sailboat. Being either comes with its own unique challenges and obstacles to overcome, and sometimes endure. But going into it with the right knowledge, or knowing what to outright avoid, can make all the difference between what sailing is supposed to be all about, fun and excitement while traveling to exotic locations, or, without the experience and right knowledge, grueling misery, arguments, and actual danger that we've all unfortunately heard horror stories about. Now, I'll disclaimer this like I hopefully am every one of my podcast episodes. I'm by no means an expert on this subject. I've only been doing it for so long. I'm sure there's people that have been doing it for longer. I'm sure there's people that just think a different way of doing it or have had different experiences. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Add it to the comments section. But these are just my observations and experience and my perspectives on what things have already happened to me. I've been both the captain and the crew. I've only got my first sailboat here back in the end of 2018, I believe it was. So I've gotten to be on both sides of this. I've gotten to take on crew from around the world. I think I've had like 9 crew members so far. So I've enjoyed and actually unenjoyed both positions. Crew has less to worry about, but you get told what to do. The captain gets to do what he or she wants to do when they want to, but you have to worry about everything. Plus actually get to pay for everything and anything that goes wrong one way or the other. So now that we kind of have that preface out of the way, this episode, just so you know, is really supposed to be useful for somebody who's looking to join a boat as a crew. Doesn't necessarily know what to expect, but wants to do it. Or any captains out there that are looking to take a helping hand on their boat, but would like to pick up somebody, in the right way, figure out how to manage them maybe a little bit better. So both parties have a bit more of an idea of what to expect. So let's kind of dive right into it. First off, I'm going to start out on the crew side of things, since that's where everybody should start out in the boating world. Some people don't, but it's where you should start out to get to watch other people make mistakes and learn from those. But these are also good notes for the captain. So if you're a skipper, don't skip over this section. Also, so you know what they're going to expect when they come to talk to you. Anyway, so first off, who should you be if you're looking to be crew? Kind of a weird way to ask this question, but bear with me on this. First off, you should know what kind of a boat you want to get on. You should just have at least some sort of a base idea. I do love the people, and I talk to them all the time, that are just, I've decided I want to go sailing. Don't know a thing about it, but I'm talking to you, Adventure Man Dan, like, let's go do it. And I'm like, all right, settle down. Let's figure this out. You need to know what kind of a boat you're going on to. Is it more of a race boat? Is it more of a cruising boat? Those are the two real opposite ends of the sailing spectrum. And I also do want to include, motor yachts in this and such. If you can call that a boat. I'm just kidding. But that is a big difference to put out there between the boat, a race boat and a cruising boat. I have a cruising boat. A race boat isn't as comfortable, but it's much, much faster. Cruising boat like mine, a lot slower, but a lot more comfort. A really good thing to know about all boats, and this goes for every one of my podcast episodes or anything that has to do with boats. A great piece of advice that was told to me by my mentor is every boat is a compromise. It's a compromise of speed, of money, if nothing else, of comfort, of performance, of draft, of size, of the propulsion system. I mean, there is, the material that it's made out of. Every little thing you do on the boat, there is usually a right way and a wrong way, but there's usually several wrong ways and several right ways. So just kind of keep that in mind as I'm talking about these boats, and it even applies to you being crew or being the captain. It really is a compromise who you go with or who you have on your boat with you. Another thing to keep in mind, besides the boat itself, is this a delivery or is this a cruise or a rally or something like that? A delivery, I've gotten to go on a few. I've even gotten to go get paid on one, and that felt really good. But a delivery is some usually a fairly wealthy person has their boat and they want to get it from A to B. And a boat being the large thing that it is, and sailing or going in the open ocean being an involved process, sometimes they don't have the time or the money, and deliveries are a very common thing and a great way to get sailing experience, by the way, or just boating experience. Cruising, on the other hand, is what I am now doing with my boat. My boat doesn't do deliveries. Oh no. My boat cruises. You go from island to island, you get to experience things, you get to stop and just hang out on the anchor for a while. On a delivery, the delivery I got paid for, I went from Fort Lauderdale, Florida up to Newport, Rhode Island. We left Fort Lauderdale and we went out into the open ocean for, I think it was like 7 days or so, or maybe a little less. And we delivered this racing sailboat, which I'll probably talk a little bit more about that next. But back to who you should be as you're looking to be crew. Doing your research so you know the kind of boat that you're going to be on, that you want to be on. Most of you want to be on a cruiser. I can just kind of tell you that ahead of time. Race boats are fast and fun if you're into sailing, but they're not comfortable. So moving on to the next one. You need to know what you're in for. The climate, the weather, the season. Is there going to be bugs, if you're cruising, whatnot? The ocean you're in is very important. The rivers, if you're going to be sailing up a river or down or up the intercoastal waterway, if you're going to be in the Mediterranean, if you're going to be in some other mixture of these things, the Great Lakes or what have you, you need to know where you're going because it can make a really big difference. For instance, if you're sailing in the Bahamas versus if you're sailing in Seattle. If you're sailing in the Bahamas, bring your sunscreen. If you're sailing in Seattle, do not bring your sunscreen, absorb all the sun that you can get. Just kind of as a good thing. More on who you should be if you're looking to be crew, physically fit. I've never taken on somebody that wasn't physically fit. I've taken on one person that wasn't super fit, and in hindsight, I probably won't do that again, but it would have been fine. But it is a definite requirement. What is physically fit does depend on the boat. Some boats race boats, you really need to be fit on. Most cruising boats, not so much. But if you're going on somebody else's boat, especially that doesn't know you, you should have some level of fitness to where you can run so far. It's just, you can't be a slob if you're going out on the ocean. It's unforgivable out there. So the physical side is pretty cut and dry. Be fit, be able to handle the ocean. Seasickness, for instance. I do get seasick occasionally. Grit and bear through it. I like to take the helm, honestly, when I'm seasick, which most captains would be thrilled about. It's got to be some pretty tough seas, especially if I've been sailing, continuously for a little while. But all this stuff's pretty cut and dry. Really, it's who should you be psychologically, emotionally, and such. You should be a good communicator, especially to get onto the boat. It really helps. What I mean by that is you need to be a sociable person. Sailboats are, in my experience, I haven't been on a spaceship yet, and I haven't been deep on the ocean floor. But besides that, I've done a lot of traveling, and sailboats are by far the best place for conversation. It's kind of what you want to do on them. It's just, you get to know somebody on such a deeper level, and it's fantastic. It really is, with the right people. I've only taken on one crew member that I didn't really like, that I had to, get off the boat early. Nothing bad happened. It was just, wasn't the right guy. He was pretty much unable to socialize. And there was other things that were wrong as well. But that was one of the things that was like, whoa, like, what are you doing on a boat? You need to be good company. And good company is actually probably a good way to put it. And this goes for both the captain and the crew. But certainly if you are the guest, you definitely need to be good company while you're there. Moving on, and easily, in my opinion, the biggest factor, and this goes both ways for captain and crew, of who you should be mentally fit, emotionally fit. You should be someone who is stable and can take, the ups and downs of life, and especially the ocean, take that well. You should be somebody who doesn't get stressed out super easily, who doesn't burst out in rage fits and whatnot. You need to be a calm, level head to be out there. A sailboat environment is this close, contained one. Yes, you do have all the space in the ocean, but I mean, you're stuck on the boat. And it can definitely mess with someone's psyche very quickly. I've seen it happen in all different ways. And I've seen it happen with veterans who've been out on the water for, decades and decades. I mean, I guess they were just like that. But it's probably the biggest thing I can say of this entire podcast episode. Be mentally and psychologically and emotionally stable. It's a huge thing. And whoever you pick to be your captain or whoever you pick to be your crew, make sure they're the same. I mean, you can come right out and ask, hey, any history of mental illness I should know about? It's kind of a fair question, and I believe I actually have it on my crew questionnaire for people that are applying to be crew on my boat. So that's a really big thing. The next thing, where should you be looking if you're looking at crew? It's not always possible, but if you can, being able to go down, see the boat, and meet the captain in person is the absolute best. Now, I've taken on most of my crew without actually meeting them, in person. And for sure, I probably would have made different crew decisions if I had gotten to meet other people. But I did a really thorough process when I was picking up crew, and I didn't have any problems. That being said, when I was crew, I don't think I've never gone on somebody's boat that I didn't first meet. When I did this trip recently, a couple times to the Bahamas, that was the most recent time. That was only a few months ago that I was once again crew, and I assumed that role. I was no longer captain of the vessel. It was this other guy. There's no question, there's no arguments, or nothing. He is the captain. That's it. I made sure to go out and meet the guy, get a sense of his personality. He was a bit of a wily guy, but I was like, this will be fun. I get a sense of him. Probably, if you fly all the way and you show up and maybe you're not quite expecting that, maybe your phone call, was a little bit shorter, it could catch you off guard. So if you can meet the person, it's not necessary. There are obviously, really the best crewing positions or finding crew is searching throughout the entire world. That's what I do whenever I'm looking for crew. They can't always fly out. So in that case, a good thorough screening is required, and I'll go over that more in detail later. So where you should be if you're looking to be crew, if you can't be there by the boat, you can't fly out, you want to at least be able to do some video chatting and whatnot, be able to be somewhat able to get a sense of who and what you're getting yourself into. And if not, you have to be in a place where you can fly out in a timely manner. Many active cruising boats, like mine, I don't want to have to be, sailing through island chains. I'd have to be at an island chain at a specific time or have to wait there for too long. I want to be able to keep my flow going. And really, if you're on a sailboat, you don't want to be near an airport. Really, you want to be way out there. You want to be out there, just you and nature and islands and the ocean. So a little bit of a backstory for that. Moving on, if you're looking to be crew, what should you bring? A really great thing, call the captain, ask him flat out. What does your boat have? What doesn't it have? They should have. I keep a fully linened and pillowed and blanketed aft cabin for my crew members. Of course, they have their own crew or their own cabin, but I make sure that they have things that they shouldn't have to pack. You shouldn't have to pack that, but some boats you might. Foul weather gear, especially if you're going to any climate that's 70 degrees and below during the day, you 100% should be bringing foul weather gear. I'd be shirtless through storms in the Bahamas in the summer, but even right now, I'm in Florida and it just dropped down to the 50s recently. If you're out sailing with the wind chill as well, the moisture content, and now you've got some sea spray, now you're wet, you're going to go hypothermic really, really fast. Foul weather gear, it doesn't just save your life, it just makes it, manageable. So that is something, again, talk with the captain. It's just good to have on board. I keep enough foul weather gear for my crew, but not everybody does, and you might have to get your own, and that's a good thing to have as crew. Or he might have his own, like I do, but it doesn't look super fashionable, so you might want to bring your own more fashionable one. What else you should bring? Warm, appropriate clothing, and beyond that, your normal toiletries and whatnot for traveling, and a medication, all that pretty basic stuff. Beyond that, I recommend bringing a mask and snorkel. Of course, I'm going to say that, but I really do, and I recommend testing it before you get there. Go to a pool, do whatever. You should treat your mask first. You can look that up online. I don't know if I might even have a podcast episode on that already, but you should have a good mask and snorkel. If you're doing an ocean crossing, not as necessary, but even if you are going across the ocean, something gets caught in the propeller, you stop everything. Somebody goes down under, you pull it out. It's a great thing to have. It really is. So moving on to the next topic. Who is on the boat is more important than the boat. This would probably be second to being mentally and emotionally fit as crew and as a captain for that matter. But this is just in my humble opinion. I would rather be on the clunkiest, smelliest, the toilets backed up, all this kind of thing, but be with good people. I mean, it almost doesn't matter what you're going through when you're with good people. And then the flip of that, being on the most immaculate, being on a big, beautiful yacht, it's got air conditioning and all these things, and the captain that you're with is an a-hole or something, and he's just doing crazy things, and he's getting on your nerves, and whatever's going on. It's absolutely horrible. It really is. I'd much rather be on the clunker with great people. And when you're sailing, you're there not to be on the sailboat. You're there to be on the water and whatnot anyway. So you kind of live out of the sailboat in a lot of ways. It's nice. I mean, my boat's comfortable that I can live inside of it, obviously, and I enjoy it very much. But you're there to be out in the elements and to be enjoying these experiences with other people. So, who the captain is and that he's somebody who's sociable to a level that you like. Obviously, I'm a bit of a talker. Welcome to my podcast. I'm a bit of a talker. So I would want somebody who's also a bit of a talker, somebody I can have a back and forth dialogue with. Likewise, if you're somebody who's a little bit quieter and you prefer things a little bit more mellow, find a captain who's a little bit mellower, not so much like me. Then I would say after a sociable captain, you want to find one, obviously, who is a good sailor. I would rank that second, next to it, that he knows his stuff. And if you don't know sailing, that can be a tough thing to distinguish. Try and talk to other sailors who might know him would be a good way, kind of recommendations in that. Hearing where he's been, in what conditions, with who on his boat. There are people that have done good amount of sea miles and whatnot. They've sailed far, but maybe they had somebody else that was the skipper. So get a sense. Ask him or her, but usually him. Ask him or her. Hey, how far have you gone? What kind of route did you do? Give me a little bit of a sense of it. But again, if you're inexperienced, it's kind of tough to know what's good and what's bad in that. After sociable captain, a good sailor captain, I would then look at, okay, how good is the boat? Newer does help a little bit, but it's not the end all be all. There are plenty of new boats that a bunch of things don't work on them. Systems that go against each other. I've seen that with like a brand new. It was back in 2018 when I was in Santa Cruz, California, learning to sail with my mentor, and he was helping out this guy with a brand new 2018 Jeanneau. I think it was a 43. Beautiful, beautiful boat. I didn't really like it though. A lot of things didn't work on it. Things felt flimsy and whatnot. And again, I'm going to come back to my boat as the example. My boat is a 1984, and a lot of people are taken aback by that when they hear it. And that's not due to me. That's due to Charlie. His full name is slipping me right now, but the man that I bought the sailboat from. He took immaculate care of it. As well, Beneteau ideally Beneteau is a great brand. It's a very, very well built boat. Everything works on it, which it will surprise you how many boats everything doesn't work on. And I should actually put an asterisk behind that. There is always something that doesn't work on your boat. I can look right next to me, and yeah, those are my water tank gauges, and they don't work. They never have. I've always had to eyeball them, which is fine. You figure out ways around it, but you want a boat that keeps the people in and the water out. That's very, very important, and doesn't have a backed up head. Especially if you're a female crew member, you really want a toilet that works. If you're a male, yeah, you can go over the side, whatnot. It's not as bad, but anyway. So after it being a sociable captain, he's a good sailor, or she. They have a good boat, a seaworthy boat, has the amenities that you're looking for and whatnot. Then I would look at the route or the sail plan. If it's a delivery, I would be saying, okay, are they going south against the Gulf Stream off of the east coast of the U.S.? And will they be doing this with a northerly wind, which is a terrible route? I've done it. It's terrible. Or the exact opposite. Will they be going from, let's say, Miami up to, let's say, here, Fort Pierce, with a southerly wind? That is a dream of a sail. Let's make it even better. A southeast or a southwesterly wind. I mean, you would have glass water. It would be perfect. It'd be absolutely perfect. The Gulf would push you up. So your sail plan, your route is very important. At least that's the route side. The plan, do they plan to go to islands? Do they plan to, do island hopping? That's really the best. That's really the most fun, obviously, depending on where you are. You don't want it to be too buggy and whatnot, but that's a very important one. So that's the order. So one more time to recap, because this is very important if you're looking to be crew. Is the captain sociable, emotionally stable? How good of a sailor is he? Is his or her boat in good condition? Then how good is the sail plan or the route? Are they going to the Bahamas? Are they going to Bora Bora? If you're looking to get on a boat and they're in Bora Bora, they're probably a little competitive, But anyway, so moving on. Good things to look for in a boat captain. And again, this is just my opinion, but just so you as the crew, when you go to talk to them, which again I highly recommend, and I'll cover that more in a future section here in a moment. But these are just some things that you should be looking for. Should be fairly easygoing, confident, but humble. So it takes me off the list. I know this, but but those three things does kind of make a level-headed captain. They should be aware of some of the mistakes they've made. They shouldn't. If they never mention themselves making a mistake, something's up. My sailing mentor, Don Radcliffe, man used to build nuclear reactors, sailed around the world, great guy. He admits very frequently things he does not know. And I really respect that about him. And it's something that I hope rubs off on me. Because sailing is such a complex, large topic. And you will meet especially newer captains who have a bit of a God complex going on. They've only done things the right way. And usually it's because they've figured out how to leave the dock or something. They haven't gone very far. And that kind of a captain can be insufferable and difficult to deal with, in my opinion, and in my experience. Thankfully, mostly my experience from dealing with them, talking to them from my boat to their boat or so on like that. But anyway, other things to look for in a good captain, again, that social side, you want them to be, a personable kind of a guy. I would offer more of a bit of a warning on this next little bullet here. Be careful of a captain who solo sailed only for years after year. 1 year of solo sailing, not too terrible, but more than that, you gotta be a little bit careful, because they may have forgotten how to share their space. It's already tough enough having crew on your sailboat that you don't know and they don't know you. It's a new thing. I find that because I've taken on crew continuously, it helps, you kind of get rusty at it, actually. You're like, don't touch that. You're rattling the silverware too loud. And you just gotta loosen up about it. But somebody who hasn't had anybody on their boat for a long time, everything is like nails on a chalkboard to them. I pity them. I really do. And, sometimes I think I take on crew just so I never get to that level. I'm going to share a quick story. I'm going to omit the name of the captain, but I connected the two of these. This was actually a female captain. She had a catamaran in the Bahamas. I believe she was in the Bahamas for some time. And I think she had just gone into Florida somehow. And I think she probably admitted that her crew got off there after I pieced together, this puzzle. But there was this really great guy named Josh, Kiwi from New Zealand. Still want to get him on the boat as crew. So Josh, if you're listening, one of these days, man, we'll get you over here. But he just didn't make the cut for the applications one time. But anyway, great guy, stayed in contact with him. And he really wanted to go sailing, and this was during COVID as well, I should mention. He really wanted to go do some sailing, and this woman messaged me. She wanted me to come help her sail her boat. And I'm like, I don't do that, unless it's something crazy, unless it's a really cool thing. But so I connect the two of them, and they end up sailing right up past me. And I go out to meet them, and Josh also kiteboarded, so we were kind of doing some kiteboarding together. And I got to meet her, and she was very crass. And kind of almost comical. I think I've developed a bit of a sense of humor for that, which is, I'd recommend if you're captain or crew, develop a very good sense of humor very quickly. But anyway, but I didn't think it was too bad, but I could tell it was actually my first time meeting in person, this Josh guy, and I could tell he was what I had, come to expect from talking to him on the phone and doing video chats, things like that. He was a great guy. And like the next day he told me, he's like, man, I need a ride off the boat. You got to come get me. He's like, all these things. And I ended up talking with him, and there was a lot of things that were wrong. And it's nothing against her being a female captain. It's a thing against her not taking her boat out really ever on her own. And a thing against her not ever taking on crew and then not knowing how to be a good captain to them. She did a lot of things that were kind of unforgivable in my book. This crew member, Josh, for her he rebuilt her engine apparently, was just doing a ton of work. She really didn't know how to sail the boat. She charged him a lot of money to be crew, which, crew should contribute to the boat. But, a little bit financially, I suppose. But if you're doing so much work, ixnay the contributions and this guy was doing that. And when I went on her boat, I could see she did not take good care of the boat. It was somebody who had been living on there and not sailing it for year after year. I think she said it hadn't left its mooring for like 12 years or something. So a little bit of a horror, I wouldn't call that a horror story, but, and this Josh guy, he handled it beautifully. He, was respectful. He stuck in there. He hung in there. He was going up the ICW, so I think if things got really bad, it was a great place. You could really get off anywhere if you had to. He knew me. He knew I was there. He gave me a call. He gave me enough heads up about it. He handled the situation really well, and he got out of there just fine. And took a flight back over wherever he was before that. So a little bit of a story there just to kind of give you an idea. And this kind of segues me into this next point of this overall topic of things to look for in a boat captain. But the captain you're looking to crew for should have their finances together. They shouldn't be worried about every single penny because boats are expensive. And some boats are going to be less worried about their expenses than others. I've been crew on yachts before, and I know money was not an issue. I mean, when you're putting in 500 gallons of diesel, just to go one way, and then you have to turn around the very next day, and you get back to the dock, and you get on the phone, and you talk about some business deal, and you hang up the phone, and you go, "Oh yeah, no, I just paid for this trip." Some trips are like that. My boat's obviously closer towards the budget side of things, but I keep things reasonable, able to go out to dinner and whatnot. And there are plenty of boats out there, I kind of call them hippie boats, and they look like a ton of fun, and they are definitely trying to pinch every penny. Those three categories, the real yachties, myself kind of more in the middle, and then the real hippie boats, I don't worry about any of those. But there are the derelict boats where nothing works, and they really don't have the money to do anything, and they're really hoping that whoever comes on as crew, some of these captains get delusions of grandeur, that their boat is charter worthy, and all this, and that people should be paying, like that previous female captain was talking about, that the crew should be paying like it's a charter to be on the boat. And that's not acceptable when the boat's in, such bad condition. So some things to kind of keep in mind there as you're being crew. Moving on, what is a good boat? I kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but I'll just kind of touch on it again. Depends on what you're into. So again, we're going to break it up into two different categories of sailboats. As far as motorboats go, you've got some boats that can plane that are big enough to go cruising, which not too many of them, they burn a lot. But the bigger the motorboat is, they stop planing. I forget how big they are before they stop planing. But most yachts that are motor yachts that are cruising, they're cruisers, not racers. They're not trying to go too fast. But sticking really more just a sailboat, which is my forte, you have race boats and you have cruising boats. If you're going to crew on a race boat, expect minimal comfort. There was no Dodger or Bimini when I did the big delivery from Fort Lauderdale up to Newport. I got sunburnt day one. I was like, shirts off. Yeah, we're in Florida. Yeah, I got roasted. I remember huddling underneath underneath where you would sit, just next to the helm, just to be out of the sun, or just hunkering down below. It was hot and miserable. But that boat cooked. That boat held the Trans-Pacific record for like 15 years. The boat's called Merlin. It's a 70-foot racing sailboat. It's a Santa Cruz 70. Actually, I believe it's a 68-foot sailboat though. 78 or something foot mast on it, 3,000 square foot spinnaker, beautiful, beautiful boat. And the thing can just cruise through the water, but it is not comfortable. You've got six beds, 6 cots in the back, all on blocks. You gotta wedge yourself into it. I'm a nimble person. But it was cool. It was an experience, and that's what I did it for. But if I was looking to go sailing again, I'd go on a cruising boat. Cruising boats are bigger, stockier, more stuff on them. We've got solar panels up and wind generators and big biminis and stuff, to keep the sun off of us. And we're not built for speed. My boat, when I'm out there sailing and trying to make way, I average 5 or 6 knots, and I'm totally happy with that. I'd like to go a little faster, hopefully with some new sails, but that's just what you're getting into. So no matter what, you want a boat that just keeps the water out, keeps the people in, but you want a boat that's what you're aiming for. There are a lot of people that want to go for the good sail, the fast sail. Go for the racing boats. You'll drive yourself insane on a cruising boat then. If you'll just be like, we're not going fast enough, trim the sails, it won't do a thing. So anyway, what is a good route? It's kind of the next topic. Now this is different for everybody. And when I say route, obviously where you're moving to, where you're going from. I mentioned a bit how the Gulf Stream off of Florida and the whole East Coast really Going with it, and when the wind isn't out of the north, or a lot of the eastern directions, is an absolute beautiful thing. I love the Gulf Stream when it's like that. When the wind is out of the north, I want to be kiteboarding off of shore. I don't want to be out in the ocean. It's absolutely horrible. Similarly, let's take a look at, say, and I only know certain waters. I've only sailed so far around the world so far. But when I've sailed, up and around from Santa Cruz, San Francisco, back and forth through there, and really the whole West Coast, as I understand it. If you want to go from Seattle to San Diego, that's a beautiful route. Or Seattle doing get to San Diego, then do the Baja Haha. That's a rally, and actually that'd be a great thing if they're still doing it during COVID and all that. If you're looking at crew, and you're on the West Coast, that I've heard wonderful things about. You go from San Diego, all the way down the Pacific side of Baja, and then I think you end at Cabo. That's a great route. The wind is normally at your back or somewhere about there. It's a ton of fun. If you do the opposite, my sailing mentor wanted me to go on a delivery with him after I got my boat. Didn't take him up on it. And he wanted to go from, the delivery had to go from Cabo San Lucas. Actually, it was after the Baja Haha. From Cabo San Lucas, the very southern tip of Baja California, Mexico. They wanted to go from there up to San Diego. That is called the Baja Bash. And you can use your imagination to figure out why. Those aren't the most preferable routes. But if you need experience, those are the ones you get on, because nobody else wants to do them. They're going to be cheaper. Maybe even you'll get paid, all that kind of stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind. Slowly moving from island to island with no rush. That's the route that I like to do now. And if that's what you want to do for cruising and, the beautiful photos and whatnot, that's really what you're looking for. The route where they're making plenty of stops. So just to kind of cover and button up that category. The next one's a big one is finances. Every boat's different. But here, I'm talking about the crewing side, not chartering or being paid crew. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to get paid to be crew. But really that was because of my mentor helping out and because of circumstances that he found an opportunity to get into. It was last minute and whatnot. So mostly when I'm talking about crewing, I'm referring to not professional crew, the people that get the little outfits and go on big mega yachts. They have their whole own videos and everything else. No, I mean the people that have seen the sailing life. Maybe you've seen some sailing YouTube channels like La Vagabond or Delos, or maybe you just want to learn sailing. It's a really great way to do it. That's what I'm talking about here. So there's kind of those two opposite sides of the spectrum of ones that are getting paid. Deliveries would be the other one to get paid on, where you don't have to be professional crew. But just talking about people that want to have crew on their boat to help sailing a little bit. Finances still does come into that. In that case, and this is also how I do it as well, so I have personal experience with doing it, you're definitely going to be paying for your expenses to get to the boat, obviously. On my boat, for instance, I don't need crew to sail it. I sail it just fine, solo, single-handing. Sometimes I kind of prefer it. Really, I have crew on my boat, for instance, to help me out with videography and things like that. That's what I get out of my crew. They're not professional videographers. Nobody's been one or close to it thus far. So I have people contribute, a little bit towards, we're using diesel, we're using herbs and spices, cooking oils, everything from toilet paper, post-pandemic here, to I keep the boat fully stocked, so a lot of nights when I can't go spearfishing or whatever, we'll end up eating, spaghetti or mac and cheese. I make a really good ramen, don't knock it. But those things are already on the boat, and that's what I have people contribute a little bit towards. Not much, but that's what they're contributing towards. Other boats, however, if you're going to be going on like a catamaran, their expenses are really that much higher, and just the general spectrum, I guess the answer or the financial number y'all are looking for is, I would say 7 is kind of the lowest I've really heard of people charging per day, and those are some really bad boats. I would say probably 12 to 15 is more of an average. And then for catamarans, lagoons, leopards, and the such, which are very, very nice to cruise on, you're looking at contributing more towards $25 or $35 and up per day. I've seen as much as $50, but I think if you're paying $50 a day to be on a boat, not including your expenses, to get to the boat, and you're also paying for your food and such, at $50, I call that a charter, in my opinion. This is US dollars for all you internationally. But anyway, If you're doing like a route like a delivery, it depends on your experience, and that's how you can get paid. Or if you don't have experience, don't expect to get paid. I sure as heck didn't. You gotta earn your stripes. If it's a tough pass, you can get on it. But for cruising, expect to give a little bit in that regard. Work all this out well ahead of time before getting on the boat. You should talk about it, have a clear number in mind. And again, you don't want a captain who's concerned with every dime, every nickel. Don't get me wrong, you need to pay them. But if they're like haggling with you over it, if it sounds like they're in financial problems, don't go on the boat. That's just a terrible way to start things out. There are all sorts of schemers out there that have sailboats, and maybe they couldn't quite afford their dream, but they're blindly going towards it. You do hear stories about that. People that try to sucker other people into getting on the boat and kind of completing their dream for them. So work all that out. But do remember, $10 a day. Well, let's think about it. You pay $600 a month for rent if you're lucky. That's $20 a day. So just $10 a day towards the boat, that's really nothing. In terms of, just your living. If you were to go travel and even go to a hostel, you're probably going to spend more than $10 a day for that. And I mean, on my boat, and like many others, my crew members, they have their own bedroom, so you're definitely not going to get that if you're traveling somewhere else. So try to kind of factor that into everything. And then remember, the captain of the boat you've been on has spent so much more money than you have, that, a few $100s a month towards, maintaining the boat really isn't anything. I mean, boat stuff is so expensive. When we go to, when I go to West Marine, God forbid, I hate going there, but, or whatever, when something breaks, we always say boat coupons. A boat coupon for me is about $100. That means it's anything that I have to do on this boat, it's going to cost at least $100. And I might have to do 10 things in a day, so it could really add up. Bigger the boat, catamarans and such, or a yacht, a big motor yacht, their boat coupons are in the 5-digit category. So keep that all in mind as well. Moving on to fair amount of work. You probably heard horror stories about people who got on a boat and they had to, I just told you one, the guy had to rebuild the engine and all these things. It's tough to say because each boat is different. I've actually had kind of bad experiences not giving my crew anything to do for work. I find people actually get kind of complacent on that. You're not likely to find that. That was a bit of a one-off. But it is tough to say because each boat is different, the circumstances are different, but how much work should you expect to do on a boat? You should have some sort of overarching role and goal. Recently, with my last crew members, I found that I give the entire galley a good amount of the cooking, although I help out a lot with the cooking, especially with fish and seafood, but a good amount of the cooking, all of the dishes, all of the cleaning of the dishes. That's a really big one. That is completely their responsibility, and it's actually kind of a good thing. This is a bit of a suggestion for you captains out there, is by giving them their own little domain, they get kind of proud of it. More than a few times, my last crew member, Alicia, kind of kicked me out of my kitchen, but it wasn't really my kitchen at that point. It was her galley, and I respected that, and I think that really helps out a lot. As well, you've only got so much space on the boat. You don't have a huge fridge freezer like you would at home. So you need to be able to pack in the provisioning, and you need somebody to be on top of that. That's a really good thing. And if you are the crew, jump to that position. It's not a bad one at all. If you mess it up, the boat doesn't sink. I can't put crew on navigating first. I'm not going to risk my boat for that. And I've noticed, especially younger crew members, to be frank, they don't work as hard, and they're not willing to work as hard as older crew members. The oldest crew member I think I had was like 56. I think it was Steven. He was probably my favorite crew member. Incredibly respectful, very helpful. He contributed more than I asked. Financially too, he kicked me more money than I asked for. I mean, not an exorbitant amount, but still I was like, wow, I was like, thank you, man. I really appreciated that. But age aside, you should expect to do at least a couple hours of work every day. That's a good number. Now, 3 hours and more? You definitely shouldn't be paying to be on the boat at that point. I think that's kind of more of a job at that point. And also, you should get to do some sailing and whatnot throughout this. You hear horror stories of people who get to the boat, they don't even leave the dock. They do like a couple weeks worth of work. I've heard that many times. Don't do that. If the boat's not ready to sail, don't go do it. Unless you really like the person, don't go do it. Go pick a boat that's already sailing, that's been sailing. You want to find a boat that's been sailing for a little while. That's really the best. You don't want to be rebuilding the engine day one, or doing all the bright work, before even leaving the dock. Yeah, so if you're really unsure about some of these things, by the way, if you've listened this far into the podcast and to me rambling, feel free, send me a message, mention this podcast, mention this moment at the 39, 30, 40 minute mark, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and give you my 2 cents on, does this sound like too much or too little or whatever. But anyway. So moving on to a pretty big topic, bad captain and needing to get off the boat. This happens and you need to be prepared for it. Things can start out great, but again, we all hear about the horror stories. They are far fewer than the good ones. You shouldn't be discouraged by the horror stories. You should simply try to learn from them. But things will go wrong on a sailboat, on every boat, actually, every single boat. Things break. The weather doesn't play ball. You wish you had some ice cream when you don't, because you don't have a freezer on your boat. I'm working on it. That's more for me. But anyway, but these things can happen, and how the captain handles this and how the crew handles this as well, tells you a lot about the person's character, especially a lack of sleep. If you want to know somebody's character, their true character, deprive them of sleep for a while and have a few minor things go wrong. You will find out a lot about them. But let's say in this situation, you've gotten on the boat, things seemed good, but you got on the boat and now you were like, oh my gosh, this person's a madman. I want to talk to you in this section about how to get off the boat. What are some good ways to do it? Well, first off though, make sure you have been carrying your weight on the boat. Make sure you're not the reason the captain's going crazy. And I mean the legitimate reason for that. Next I'd say, make sure you're paid up and make sure that the captain has no reason to have an ill grudge against you. You don't want them to dislike you. You don't want to be, say you were supposed to pay $10 a day towards the boat. You don't want to be a week or so behind. You should be paying forward on those things, because it is a flaky circumstance. The captain wants to know that you're there to help. But I would say, wait till it's an appropriate time, not while you're mid-passage or something like that and you want to turn around. That's not really, you can't ask that of a captain to turn the whole boat around, unfortunately, depending on the situation, of course. But sit down, try to be respectful, but tell them this isn't the boat for you. Be honest with them, and ask, again, respectably, whenever there's an next port that you'd like to get off. It's kind of the best you can do. Again, if this is a dangerous circumstance, channel 16 on the VHF, Mayday, 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 I'm a crew member with a crazy captain. And hopefully make sure the captain can't hear you say that. Do not abuse that. You will very quickly get booted out of the boating community if you are not in danger and you call a mayday. That is only for, immediate, bodily harm that you're worried about. But it does happen where, some people have had to do that before. Otherwise, I mean, sometimes you just gotta tough it out. You just gotta stay on there and deal with it until you get to a place where you can get off. Try not to just jump off randomly without them knowing. That's really rude and I mean, a little unexcusable. I've heard of it happening. I've heard of it happening to good friends of mine too, where, there was a couple on the boat, and the couple, after being together for several years on a boat, they had a big breakup and they both just jumped ship. And he was left to solo sail, I think it was like a 45-foot boat. So communication's key. Tell them what's going on, tell them what's bad, try to work on it a little bit. I mean, you gotta be respectful, but, and I've seen it before, captains get the God complex and they're kind of insufferable. And then you do got to know when to get off the boat. If things are really bad and they're treating you badly, I mean, conditions being bad, conditions can change, the weather and whatnot. The anchoring, you can get to go to a cool island, that can change. But the captain's personality isn't something that's due to change while you're on the boat. Don't try to change the captain. If they're not a good one, get off the boat. Till then, make the best of your time, keep a level head. Sailboats can drive people crazy, all different environments, but sit down with them, tell them, hey, this isn't the boat for me. Here's any money that I owe you. I've cleaned the dishes. I want to get off your boat. And, that's a pretty reasonable thing to do. All right. The next one is a tough topic that needs to be addressed. Romance on the boat. This is a really, really tough one. This really is. But there's an unfortunate reality to it that 99% of the sailboats out there have male skippers, especially the ones, they're looking for crew. 99 or so, or 90, 95, 90%, whatever, high 90s. It's a male skipper. And a lot of times they're older. It's not, most people don't get into sailing or don't have the ability to go sailing long distance like I have until they get older. And they're maybe they got into a divorce, maybe their wife didn't want to be on the boat with them. There's a million stories, but they're solo on the boat. They're looking for crew, but really they're looking for a date on their boat. They're looking for a woman to come all the way out to their boat, be stuck on the boat with them. And it's not right. It's a bad situation. Especially if the woman, which usually the woman's like, hey, I came here for sailing. I came here to learn things and to enjoy this. And instead, you're being pressured, and it's absolutely not right. But it is an unfortunate reality of sailing, and cruising in general. The sailboat is probably the most romantic environment you can think of. You get to go to some beautiful places and all this stuff. So I really appreciate just people having good communication. So if you are a female crew member, by the way, this section is not for the men. I would be very surprised to hear about a male, a young man going onto a sailboat with a female skipper, and having this reverse thing. It's kind of unheard of, but it's overly heard of for female. When you're interviewing the captain, and that'll be the next section here in a moment, but you should, he should interview you, and you should interview him as well. And if this is something you're serious, you're concerned about, if this is something you've seen as photos and whatnot, and you're going, oh God, no way, bring it up. Bring up this podcast. Say this wily guy, Adventure Man Dan, at the 46-minute mark in his podcast, talks about romance on the boat, and say, hey, listen, I'm really not looking for that. I'm just looking for a sailing experience. I just want to put that out there and make sure that that's not a agenda for your boat. Say it respectfully. You really don't want to hurt the person's feelings or anything like that, but it is something you would save you to put out there. Again, this is a tough topic. I've taken on, let's see, Paulina, Yvette, Jordan, Alicia, 4 female crew members so far, and I think 5 male crew members. Out of all 4 of the female crew members I took on, I think it was Yvette had looked at many other boats, and she specifically showed me some, and there were some very, very creepy messages, very creepy responses. Some guys just flat out said, hey, if you have an itch, I'll scratch it, and things like that. Unless you see the guy's profile and you really think he's the one, avoid the hell out of that boat. You don't want to be trapped on there. If you go on a bad date with a guy, you can just walk away. It's no big deal. On a sailboat, it's not the case. You don't want to be trapped on there for that. So do your research. Interview the captain when he interviews you as well. Use that as a chance. Be respectful about it. But anyway, if you have any questions about this kind of stuff, again, if you've gotten this far in the podcast, feel free to message me. Happy to help some people avoid some difficult circumstances, because sailing is great, and too many people, especially too many women, have had their sailing experiences ruined by the first one of some guy making it way too uncomfortable. And it's terrible. There's really no need for that as long as we can go into it with the right circumstances and the right head on our shoulders. So anyway, moving on from that difficult tongue twister of a subject. Interviewing the captain. When I interview crew, I tell them towards the end, because a lot of them, they don't know these things, but I tell them, hey, I want to take the next however long you'd like. I want you to interview me. I want to make sure you know as much about me, because I don't want somebody on my boat who, I might like them. I might be like, oh, this person's great. They listen to everything I'm yapping on about. But they might be thinking, holy crap, this guy doesn't shut up. I don't want that. I don't want them on my boat then. I don't want them to have a bad time or to be a crab apple about it, As simple as that. So a good captain should kind of know that. They should know that, this is a two-way street. They're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. So what I recommend, and what I myself personally do is, first off, on my website, I have a whole thing set up, but that's also because I'm a bit of a YouTuber. So you're not going to get quite as much as I put out, but I do, put a lot of things to say what I'm looking for, what you should be, and yada yada, and I have people email me. But generally with what you're going to be going through, you're going to have somebody who you're going to message, who you're going to email, and have a few correspondence back and forth. Make sure your times line up, financials line up. Just get up some of the big things out of the way. Are your diets the same? That's actually a pretty big one. Make sure your diets line up. You don't want to be a vegan. Actually, you don't want to be a vegan on my boat. It's not a good idea. And many others like that. But there are boats out there that are vegans, and that could be a great thing for you. And so likewise, you wouldn't want to be a meat eater on a vegan boat, an omnivore. Anyway, so generally a couple emails, some text messages, whatnot. Then I go to a phone call. A phone call is a great way to get a bit of a sense of somebody. I ask them some more questions. And that's kind of like my stage 2 of an interview process. And in that, I ask them questions and whatnot, and I let them ask me questions. And then after that, I go to a video chat. And I did that after that one crew member who wasn't great. It wasn't the worst experience, but after that one experience, I said, you know what, a video chat, I would have been able to pick up on these social cues that he did not have. So that's something I do then. And this is a really big one for the crew. Do a video chat with the person on the boat, the captain on his boat, and politely say, hey, what about a tour of your boat? Oh, cool. Oh, where will I be sleeping? Oh, nice. What does the bathroom look like? Oh, cool. Pro tip, ask him to open up the engine room. They might be taken aback by this, but if the captain opens up the engine room and, my engine looks very clean, looks very good. I'm not even great with engines. It just looks very nice at least, and it does always run. But seeing the state of their engine could tell you a lot about how good they are with their boat and how reliable their boat's going to run. That would be a great thing to do. But otherwise, just getting a general sense of the boat so you can kind of move and kind of imagine yourself living in it, or being like, oh God, there's not enough space. It's way, way too small. Again, do this politely. If you see something that's terrible, if the bathroom looks horribly messy, don't say, oh God, I would never want to be there. Just go, oh, okay, thank you. Be respectful about it. As well in this interviewing process, as you've, gotten a chance to interview the captain, find out if this is more of a drinking party boat that likes to be at the marina, or a boat that wants to be anchored out and sailing off of secluded islands. I know people on both sides of the spectrums, and I know people that have, whether it's been a partier on a boat that likes to go out, and it's been people like to go out on a boat that likes to party. And they, generally speaking, don't mesh up. It's two different ways of sailing and cruising. I would argue that one is not sailing cruising, but that's me. So anyway, those are kind of just some tips on interviewing the captain. So the next section I'm going to talk about is more from the captain's perspective. So taking on crew for captains. Again, many of the things I've already talked about, if you're a captain, I hope you didn't skip ahead, they'll help you out greatly, and you'll kind of have a bit more of a sense of where it comes from the crew's perspective. Because it can be tough to be crew. It can be tough to be the captain, but it can be tough to be crew. Anyway, so taking on crew as the captain. I've taken on, like I said, about 9 crew members so far. All different countries, male, female. Only had one crew member I didn't like. Wasn't bad at all. Got him off the boat. Nobody cried over it. It was a good time. But other than that, I've really enjoyed taking crew on. And maybe some of you are listening to this and thinking, well, I have a boat. I have space. Maybe, maybe not. I'd recommend it. Do your due diligence. Interview some people. Put yourself out there. But it's really a wonderful experience to take people on as crew. I really enjoy it. I get to learn new things. I always pick up new music, new songs, new genres, new artists that I would never have listened to otherwise. That's kind of a special thing. Especially, I enjoy solo sailing probably for about a month. And then I start to kind of want to have crew. And at about the 2-month mark, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to have crew. That's just me personally. But having crew is there more than just, they can be there for more than just helping and cleaning. God forbid, fixing your boat, have crew to have a bit of a cultural exchange. Have crew from other countries. There's a ton of Europeans that want to be crew if you're in the US, and hopefully vice versa. It really is, and it's a great way to travel. It's just a really beneficial thing both ways. So interviewing crew members. This is something that I am doing now. I've got messages today, and I'll get messages tomorrow. I obviously do it in a different way because I am constantly on social media. I'm putting myself out there a lot. So that would be kind of my first advice, is get yourself out there. Take some good photos of your boat, some good specs on it, showcase yourself, talk about yourself a little bit. Put a whole different section, say, hey, a little bit about me. I like to drink. I don't like to drink, whatever else. But anyway, back to it. As you're interviewing crew members, I personally like to check out their Facebook or Instagram page, especially Facebook. If MySpace was still a thing, I guess I'd be doing that. And personally, I can get a really good sense of somebody based on the photos, not just the photos that they have, but what they decide to share. There's some stupid photos I've seen people put up, and I'm like, if they're putting that up, what are they not putting up? And likewise, I've seen some really well done photos that really spoke miles to the person's character. And I've done that since I went spearfishing around the world, and as I was looking for hosts and people to go spearfishing with and whatnot, I'd look at their Facebook, and of course I was looking at their fish pictures as well, but I'd look at kind of who I thought they were and whatnot. The crew that you're interviewing should be financially prepared, not just to get on the boat, to be on the boat, but they should be financially prepared to leave the boat by sort of whatever means necessary. Say you do take somebody on as crew, I recommend doing a little bit of sailing around areas where you can let them off for the first week or so to really get a sense of them. A week does a pretty good job. 2 weeks, and you should know the person as long as you've gone through some, a squall or two while sailing and some overnight watches. Say about 2 weeks and you get a pretty good sense of somebody. But anyway, they should be financially prepared to leave the boat. And in that way, you should tell them that ahead of time. You should tell them like, hey, it's a possibility. I might need you to leave the boat for any number of reasons. Maybe you have to go do something, but this way they aren't scared of that prospect. You can tell them, hey, listen, you're great, but you're just a little too chatty, or hey, listen, you're great, but you're just a little too quiet to be my kind of crew member. I would like to let you off at the next port. Is that okay? And they're like, hey, you know what? I've got money for it. That's fine. I wasn't really feeling it either. And man, if you're there, if you're at that point where you don't want them on the boat, they might be there as well. It's a really good chance at it. So anyway, kind of going back to what I was saying, get yourself out there, showcase your boat, talk to your other fellow boaters. I can recommend a bunch of different places online. I'll go into that more in detail later because that applies for the crew as well. As you're looking at crew, you should be looking at how capable they are, both in physical fitness as well in knowledge. How much sail knowledge do they have? Does that not matter? For me on my boat, I don't need the crew to know anything about sailing. I kind of actually enjoy it for them to have no knowledge of sailing, and just kind of a hunger to learn. Because I get to teach them, and I don't have to unteach them bad skills. They're not going to let the furling jib out. That we're not going to go side onto the wind, and they're just going to let the whole furling line go and let it slam my furler. I always can teach them to not do that, and it really helps a lot. So know who and kind of what you want on the boat. With the horror story I mentioned, not horror story, but the story I mentioned with my friend Josh, he knew far more than the captain did, and that actually does kind of come with its own risks. Where I would take on somebody who knew more than me, for sailing and all those other things. I would enjoy it, provided they had the right personality. I would not want somebody trying to be the captain over me. And that's something, again, if you're the crew and you're still listening, you got to respect that. You have to respect the captain, even if you know something they do not. And if you're the captain, you have to be able to take into account things that you don't know and that they may. And that's a humbling circumstance, but one that you should get familiar with, because sailing is complicated. Not just sailing, but cruising. You got to know meteorology, you got to know navigation, you got to know anchoring, you got to know your how to sail right, all these sorts of things. So anyway, just a bit on that. I kind of covered a little bit about the bad crew already. I'm kind of going in and out of my topics I got written down here, but anyway, yeah. So be prepared to let them off the boat. Kind of going back to what I said earlier. Set measurable workloads. Give good instructions. Somewhere I've got written on here a funny little quote I kind of came up with. A bowline is easy to tie if you know how to tie it, but it's difficult if you don't and you need to learn it. I think the bowline and the square knot are really the two knots I teach my crew, because they're kind of the knots you need. Really the bowline does most. And of course how to tie a dock line to the cleat. But I would say actually, yeah, the dock line to the cleat and a bowline. That's pretty much it. But, take your time when you're teaching them. It can be frustrating to teach them. It's definitely frustrating to learn. I remember when I learned how to tie a bowline, I remember getting frustrated with it. It's good to remember those things. If you're a veteran sailor of 20, 30, 50 years, it might take you a minute to slow down and, teach them how to bring the rabbit up through the hole around the tree and back down. So give good instruction. Set reasonable work goals. Don't have them brushing the whole boat constantly. Don't have them doing everything, but don't have them do nothing. I've had actually bad experiences having my crew not help and just letting them just sit around and enjoy themselves. They went a little stir crazy, funny enough. So, give them things to do that's also kind of rewarding. Be encouraging with it. Once they do learn how to tie the bowline, encourage them, compliment them. If someone's crewing for you, odds are they're doing it not just for the experience of going and traveling, but they're also doing it to learn these new skills and new things. Everybody who messages me to potentially be crew, most of them want to learn sailing. If it's not sailing, it's usually spearfishing, one of those two. And that's what they're getting out of it. You're getting somebody on board to join you on your adventure, to help you, sail the boat potentially, or clean the boat, cook, and take on these other jobs. So make sure you're kind of helping them with that thing. Remember that your words have weight. You are the captain, and depending on who they are, especially if they're not, accustomed to sailing and they're inexperienced, your words have a ton of weight, and you need to be careful with them when you're teaching somebody, when you're telling them what to do or not to do. you're having somebody into your home, so you don't want them walking on eggshells. And this is to those solo sailors out there that are going to listen to this and take on their first crew member. Just remember that your words have quite a bit of weight when you're the captain, and sometimes you need to use them. Sometimes you have somebody who's giving you a little bit of lip. Maybe I think I've had two arguments, ever since owning my boat, which I'm actually very happy with that. Out of many different crew members, not just the ones that I went with for a long time, but out of all of that, I think that's a pretty good thing. And I think you should probably expect to have a few more than, maybe two, but I've spent a lot of time traveling and being hosted and being a crew member and being in those positions, so I can relate to them a lot more. So if you are the captain, haven't taken on crew in a while, give some thought to your words as you're giving them out to your crew. Don't bottle up your emotions. If they're doing something wrong or if you need them doing more, calmly, coolly explain it to them. Actually, that's something I do want to talk about. I've heard it said before that the mark of a good captain is one that doesn't have to yell. And that's not just because, their words carry weight and they're respected. It's usually because they've talked to their crew ahead of time. Especially, you see it when guys come into the dock, and they're yelling, oh, grab this, grab that, the bumper, the line, the mizzen mast. No, the mizzen mast. Your crew should know that stuff before they get to the dock. I remember when I first got my sailboat, I was terrified of going to the dock. I hated it. I really did. And I was going to the Hyannis Yacht Club in Cape Cod. I had my mom, my stepdad, and my dad, and my first ever crew member, Jeff. And we were all having a great time. And well before we got to the dock, I gave a scenario run through. I told them, I looked up at the top of the wind deck. I said, okay, guys, so the wind's going to be coming here. The dock's like this. And as we approached, I didn't really have to say too much. I was just kind of saying like, okay, bumper out and real whisper. And I got a big compliment on the dock from I just remember the guy had carbon fiber sails or something. Like his sails were worth more than my boat. And he was, taking down his boat for the winter. And he complimented me on that. The mark of a good captain is one who doesn't have to raise their voice. It's not always the case, especially if you're out anchoring. A lot of times you got to yell up to the bow. It's a little bit different. But anyway, share the workload. Your words have weight. Take your time when you're teaching them, especially things like the bowline and other knots, things like that. If you're the captain, you should be taking on crew with a boat that mostly works. We all have things that don't work on the boat, but your toilet should work. That's a really big one. I've heard a lot of horror stories about that, where the captain was just as cool as a cucumber, going in a big old 5-gallon pail every day. Was totally cool with that. Your crew might not be cool with that, as it turns out. Go figure. So make sure things work. Make sure your boat is livable. That's really, really a big thing to be done, because they might not be as cool with your broken boat as you are. It's your home. It's your baby. And you're like, hey, I'm in control of what I don't fix, so I don't need to fix it. They may not be so cool with that. Make sure things work. Sharing your living space. Kind of already said this, but make sure your crew doesn't have to walk on eggshells. I always make sure my crew knows this is your bed. This is your space. This is your cabin. I want to make sure my crew members have a place to get away from me, and vice versa. But I know where I can go. I know I can go diving off my boat. I know I can take a paddleboard. I know I can take a dinghy. I know I can kite off my boat. I know a lot of ways to leave my boat. They may not. And on your boat, they may not. And it's really important to make sure they have a way and a place to get their own space. Because most people aren't used to being so close to somebody else for such a long period of time. And it'll drive them crazy. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much you've been married, you love them, you're intimate together, all these things. You need space. Space is healthy. You need to be able to breathe in your own head, so to speak. So good things to to put up on here. Otherwise, make sure you're telling them your sail plan and that you're accurate to it. Make sure you let them know kind of where you're going. Those will all be big things, but I kind of covered that up ahead of time. So moving on from this, let's move to kind of the joint subject here of finding a boat or crew. So going to kind of talk about some of your options you have to get in touch with people that are looking for a boat, to become crew on, or captains that want to find crew. I find myself obviously in the position where I am the captain and I'm looking for crew. And so these are some of the things that I use, some of the things you can use as well. The first thing I would actually go to is the Facebook groups. I've had great success on those ones. And again, if they're on there, it means I have a Facebook I can go look at and get a sense of them. I take a bunch of photos. I put some words to it. Hey, here's who I am. Hey, here's what I'm going to go do. Now I have a video though. I can just shoot my channel trailer and say, hey, I'm looking for crew, So I have streamlined the process a little bit. And if that's something you want to do, it's a really good idea. If I was looking for crew and the captain put together a video, I would look at it much higher. But here, if you want to get your pen and paper ready, here are a few Facebook groups that I use. If you know any more, please shoot me a message. I love, sharing. When I'm looking for crew, I want to cast as big of a net as possible. I want everybody to know about it so I can pick the absolute best crew member. And this is what you should do too, to a degree. Don't spam these sites, but, put yourself out there. Sailboat Hitchhikers and Crew Connection. I actually really like that one. I think I've gotten 2 or 3 crew members off of there. Minimal drama on there. I have seen some that I was like, whatever, but it's the internet and it's Facebook. It's an open forum, so you do see that. Find Crew, Be Crew. I really like that one. They run that one a little bit tighter, but they're both good. And then these other ones are just kind of other ones that are good too. Big Sailboat Available Crew, Yacht Crew Spaces, Crew Finder, Sailboat Crew Finder Worldwide, Captains Looking for Yacht Crew, Caribbean Sailing Crew. And I'm sure if you're in the Mediterranean, if you're in, there's all sorts of ones that are specific to their locations. Obviously, I'm not going to post to those, I'm nowhere near them. But yeah, if you just type in sailing crew, you're going to find what you're looking for. If you're either looking to be crew or looking to have your boat be put out there. And if you are crew and you're looking for a boat, put together a profile that shows you as being competent crew. I mean, put out who you want to be perceived as. If you're a female and you're putting out photos of yourself in a bikini looking fly, and you're surprised when you get romantic requests, you have no one but yourself to blame. And it breaks my heart to see these, there'll be these guys, there'll just be some dude, could be me, I can relate to it a lot. He puts this huge bio in, I've sailed here, I've done that, I can fix this, I can do that. Really is the best crew. And then there's some girl who posts some bikini photos and every captain's messaging her. I absolutely hate it. It's a detriment to either side, in my opinion. Obviously a little bit biased on this one. Women, and older women are much better about this. I always see photos of them up at the helm in foul weather gear, steering away and whatnot. And put yourself out there how you want to be perceived. Put yourself out there how you want people to look at you. Talk about your sailing experiences. Talk about what you want to be doing. Probably, don't make things too specific. Again, I'm looking for crew anywhere in the world as long as they can fly to me. If that's what you're able to do to go fly to any boat, you're going to have the option of some really cool boats out there. I do see a lot of requests from people, not necessarily to me. I have had a few, but I see a lot of posts out there from potential crew members saying, I am in, like a specific city and I want to go to Brazil or whatever, these really specific routes. Good luck. The more confined you put your sailing itinerary, the less likely it is to come to fruition. But if that's what you're trying to do, it's what you got to go for. Next up would be just regular websites. Crewseekers.net, findacrew.net, sailingnetworks.com/crew, and Crewbay. I hear good things about Crewbay. I hear good things about Find a Crew. Yeah, it's findacrew.net. You do have to pay for it, and it's kind of frustrating because somebody has to pay for it, and it's kind of expensive. And it's like, why would we do that when we can just go to a Facebook group? So I've had a lot of people that didn't pay because one party or the other has to pay in order to message the other party. And they're really good about it. I mean, they deleted my account because I accidentally put Adventure Man Dan on there, so people would have been able to look me up. So yeah, they're really, really big on stomping that out, which I get, they have a business to make. But if you're serious about being crew and you pay, I think it's like $70, something like that, for like a month, you'll have really good options for boats there because it is a very well set up website. So I can definitely recommend it for that. They have all sorts of other ways to try to, the captain has this many things going on. The crew member has this many. They really itemize it and organize it very well. Another one actually I'd like to talk about is couch surfing. I am a huge fan of couch surfing. It has saved me tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in my worldwide traveling. I absolutely love it. I believe it's something we should all be doing. But anyway, but they do have forums on there for people that are looking to sail. And I have posted on there looking for people to sail, and I get quite a bit of responses back from it. And it's really great because I can just click on their couch surfing profile. And if you don't know about couch surfing, I don't want to go into that on this podcast, but just look it up, do a YouTube video on it or something. But it's a great setup. of traveling being hosted for free. So crewing, in my opinion, kind of goes pretty well with that. So give that a check, especially if you've done it already and you've been doing it for years. It's just such a cool thing that they're like, cool, this person has references. I know they're good. I know they're good to be a guest or whatever. So it's a really great thing. But either way, for both the captain and the crew, I'd recommend you guys just cast a wide net. You got to put yourself out there, get some personal recommendations, anything you got to do. If you're going online, cast a wide net. The other way is the good old walk in the docks at the marina. Certain marinas are notorious for, this is where you leave to go from here to there, or whatever. I've seen bulletin boards where people put up, when I was in New Zealand, I remember seeing bulletin boards of, here's who I am, here's what I can do, and all this stuff, old school style. But you'll get real responses that way. And, doing it without the internet, not being computer savvy about it, more sailors than not can relate to you. Most sailors are older. Most sailors aren't particularly good with the internets. So it's a good way to do it. Once you do get embedded into this boating community, you'll find how quickly information travels and how many other people can connect you with other sailors and such. So anyway, all right, let's wrap this podcast up, you guys. Closing thoughts. The horror stories that I've heard out there and that people talk about, and they seem to get talked about the most, they are the minority. It is worth it to get out there on a boat or have somebody else on your boat. Share your experiences, share your adventures. It is 100% worth it, but do your homework. Do your homework and you'll be so much better. The odds are 1,000,000 to 1. Like me, I've had enough crew members that eventually I'm going to have somebody I didn't like. And eventually in the future, it's a guarantee there will be somebody else I do not like. I'm totally fine with that. That is the nature of traveling. And it kind of adds some beauty to it, gives some contrast to, what is getting out there and exploring the world and such. Once you're on the boat, captain and crew, take time away from each other. Very important. Don't spend every moment together. It's a huge one. Real quick, actually, I do want to talk into my closing thoughts. I have 5 rules on my sailboat. And I think it's probably better than not if captains follow something along these lines. And the crew has to as well, obviously. But the 5 rules I have on my boat is rule number 1, personal safety. I don't care if the boat sinks. Nobody die. Nobody, get cracked in the head by the boom. Nobody get their hand caught in the winch. Nobody go overboard. Personal safety is number 1. I can get another boat. I can't get another personal life. It doesn't work that way. Number 2, don't hurt the boat. As long as it's not hurting you, don't be rough on the boat. Don't hurt the boat. Take good care of it. It'll take good care of you. As the old saying goes, keep the people in and the water out. Rule number 3, and this is the one where it becomes a little more my rule, more personal to me. The first 2 rules are every boat should adhere to those 2. But rule number 3 is no talking about politics or religion while on the boat. You can have them. You can talk about it when you're on land. Heck, if we take the dinghy into land, you can talk about it. But talking about it on a boat in a closed space is not a good idea. Just not. Unless you 100% know ahead of time that you are going to agree with them about the next presidential candidate or whatever, don't talk about politics or religion on the boat. If you have any, you're both Jewish, you're both Muslim, you're both Christian, whatever, that's cool. You think you're both a different sect of that religion? Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Sailing is this beautiful thing, and once you're just you and them out there in a closed space, it can go wrong. And I've heard a lot of horror stories of people that sailed together for years, couples that were on the same boat for years, and they brought up one topic, and they couldn't disagree more, and they couldn't stand that the other one thought the other way, and there goes that. Rule number 4, no drugs, very little, if any, alcohol, and that's once I get to know the person on the boat. The alcohol one's a personal choice. Most boats enjoy their drinks. They enjoy their sundowners. But definitely no drugs, and especially no drinking if we're on a passage, if the anchor is not down and set yet, all those sort of things. And that's a rule of mine. And then rule number 5, have fun. Kind of obvious, kind of simple, but sometimes you get so focused in getting from A to B, you forget to have fun from A to B. That's really important. You gotta enjoy. I had this sailboat to have fun, and when I first got it, I remember being so scared of everything. What if I sink it? What if I hit somebody else? What if I run it aground on a nature reserve or a national park reef, like I watched somebody do? Oof, big bill. You have a boat to have fun. That's really why you have it. So make sure you're having fun. So Anyway, well, that pretty much concludes this major topic of being crew or taking on crew on your sailboat. I hope you learned something. I really do. This next episode, episode 6, it'll be coming up soon, is going to be talking about the dangers of the adventure lifestyle. This one's going to be fun. I'll talk about many close calls that I've had, what you can avoid, and some sage wisdom from somebody who's, well, almost gotten things bit off, gotten burned, gotten things broken, all that fun stuff. I hope you join me for that next episode. Until then, thanks for listening to At the Helm with me, Adventure Man Dan, and I'll see you on the next adventure. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and were either inspired, entertained, or maybe even you learned something, please consider supporting Adventure Man Dan on Patreon. You'll get exclusive early access to my YouTube videos and epic mentories, Facebook posts, and other content sometimes months before the general public, as well as tons of extra not seen anywhere else. And it can cost as low as $3, but helps me out tremendously. Also, if you haven't yet, check out my Adventure Man Dan YouTube channel for the full videos of my epic adventures, that I've edited so far. Bear with me as I continue to get caught up, but there's some great content on there already, as well as more to come. Or, if you like to do a bit of reading, take a look at the official Adventure Man Dan Facebook page. There's tons of posts dating way back to the inception of Adventure Man Dan, and it's easily the most complete and accurate archive of my adventures so far. And if you still want more, why not follow me on Instagram at adventureman_Dan, where I post some amazing, albeit random photos from my travels around the world. And of course, you can always check out my website, www.adventuremandan.life, as an essential resource for all my content and the best way to get a hold of me. Or if you're interested in literally joining the crew aboard Adventureborn, I have a whole page on the website dedicated to just that. Go ahead and check it out. Alright, well, you've made it to the very end. Now get out and go start your own adventure.